Hello, welcome to the Beans World Show, episode 6. We're gonna do video game. We're gonna do video game lore. Then we're gonna do Atari lore. Then we're gonna do Sega. No, we're gonna do Sega lore. Then we're gonna do Atari lore. And the reason I'm gonna do video game lore is because I don't need to script it. There you go. A lot of it's gonna be taken with a pinch of salt. Imagine sort of Wikipedia and all the rest of that. Before I jump into it, I've got a few shout-outs. Shout-out going to Auntie Mandy. She is a friend of ours, of the channel's. She is... I can't remember. Anyway. Anyway, she's a friend of ours, and I accidentally called her Auntie Mandy, and which she liked. So it had a ring to it. So yeah, she's a friend. She's a family member of the channel, if that makes sense. You will see her in future videos. I have to say that, don't I? Yeah, but she's got me a few locations. Well, you'll soon see that on the channel. Another big shout out goes to Alex's Ice Cream Van. Now, I don't know. Read this in the paper and thought, wouldn't that be good for a shout out? Alex's Ice Cream Van. Based in Formby. So, Alex, it'd be much more appreciated if you stuck Beans World 77 on the side of your van. That'd be wicked. That's not something you have to do, but it would be cool if, yeah. And a big shout out to... was it the shout out I was going to go to? There was another. I can't think who it was now. Yeah. So on with the podcast, I think. So I want to start this kind of, not when Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, because we could be here all day. I kind of want to talk about, first of all, I want to talk about something not quite, well, it's going to be recent-ish, because I'm thinking for us to go back, we'll talk something kind of that happened first. So I want to talk about CD-ROM technology, because it's quite a grey area in the history of video games. And the reason being was because CD-ROM actually first came out. CD compact disc came out in 1980s. But the first CD-ROM was in the 1990s. And I was looking at the price range of the first CD-ROM. I'll tell you a story about it in another podcast because I don't really want to bore you all. But I looked at the price range of the first CD-ROM. And you know what? It's still going strong on eBay now. So if you're a collector, the first CD-ROM. And it wasn't a video game, would you believe? Because they didn't know, because back then, everything was home to the educational market. So it wasn't, video games on CD-ROM were kind of can we do this kind of thing? And when they did it, the first port of CD-ROM came to, I think, was it the Amiga? No, the Atari. The Atari had, the thing is, right, the thing got to remember with CD-ROM, not only was it so new, but you could do, you could do a lot with CD. The first thing that I'll come back to this. The first thing you got to remember with CD was more storage. Now, back then, a CD could probably fit the whole entire of your cassette collection of games, and we're only talking data storage. It could probably fit about 3 collections of your game library and a little bit more. Depends on the cassette though, because cassettes can hold more than depending on how much. But yeah, cassettes. There was a theory that cassettes couldn't hold much, but that's because people only bought 90-minute cassettes or whatever. But there were ways, if you knew, to make cassettes last longer and longer and longer and longer and longer. Excuse me. But with a CD, it was very different. So we're going to come back to that because, that's something to keep in mind. Another thing as well, the myth of video on CD. You'll be able to fit more video on a CD, but what they didn't realise was, again, this is all to do with data. Because, people were thinking more on, like, albums and stuff like that. They weren't thinking more on other things. Because an audio album, you can fit up to 12 songs. You can actually fit 700 meg on CD. I don't want to get into the maths of this because it really gets boring and everything. But this helps when talking about, the lore of video games. And the reason why was because there was a CD-ROM out there in the wild that had 100 video games on. Unfortunately, they're all just data files, because there was one PC. Well, they weren't manufacturers. They were more kind of what were they? It was when compact flash cards they weren't a thing, but they were a lot of people would have, there'd be some kid in a bedroom who would put 20 games on a flash card for you, an extra. And there used to be, my real dad had a compact flash card with a load of games on, right? But then what we found out was there was a compact flash card out there in the wild with more games on, and he got this compact flash card. And then he got these loads of floppy disks, and then he got this CD. And of course, back then, a lot of nerds thought that if you bought this thing and whatever, they obviously thought you knew. And my dad didn't. So when he can't remember, I think he binned the CD, I can't remember the story. No, he didn't. So his mate said, you haven't got a CD drive, have you? A CD-ROM. No. He said, I'm really sorry, mate. He says, that game won't work without the CD-ROM. You need the CD-ROM to open the game up. And the CD-ROM had the text files for the game. It was just, you needed the CD-ROM to have all the files on. This was before CD installer patches and all the rest of it. So yeah. Now, I kind of wanted to say, like, CD-ROM consoles were a bit of a fatality, which I'm going to talk about in another episode. But I also think now I think they're a fatality. But back then, and you look back, it's strange. It's great to have this look back in time, because I think there's something within our childhood that is amazing, and we've tried it and it flopped and we've never seen it again for whatever reason. And when the Sony PlayStation came, that to me, even looking back, I thought, wow, PlayStation, man, it's the future. And I remember one in class. Here's a little story for you. I drew. Got told off for doing it. I drew, the PlayStation logo, and I had it stuck on my shelf. Because in school we were allowed to have things on our shelf, to know where our shelf was. And I had a Sony PlayStation. But back then things were very different. And this was before brain rot. This was before the iPhone craze and everything like that. This was just the beginning. But one of the things I think that I found cool with the PlayStation was, wow, it's a disc and it's got video on it. But I do think there's things that weren't pushed with the PlayStation. I do think there's a lot of it, especially with the audio stuff. I think there is locked up in a Sony PlayStation somewhere. There is a mod sound library. I know people have found it and stuff. I watched a thing on YouTube talking about that. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to go way back in time. Back before I was born, would you believe? Back to the days of the 1970s. So we're not going all the way back, but we're going far enough. And we're going, in fact, towards the end of the 1970s, so the beginning of the 1980s, when Apple were doing their thing. And Steve Jobs was a part of the Atari clan. And they bullied Steve Jobs into making a game. Now, they did make a game, but when you read the Steve Jobs book, and this is very, very important, I want to tell you now, and there is a Steve Jobs interview online, and it states that I left Steve Wozniak to finish the game because he was into video games. I wasn't. I was into money and business, and I was into, all that kind of thing when I got going, and I knew that what I was doing was going to make big business. And in the book, he disses a lot of the kids that were into video games because he knew that they weren't going to chase the money. They were just going to bury their heads in the sand. Now, that's coming from Steve Jobs. Technically, he went in the right route with what he was doing with Apple. And in a way, I think a lot of the Apple people are not gamers, which there isn't shame on. But when you think, like, Apple could still do it with a video games console now. They could do it because they've got everything there. But the thing is, Apple now, they hold back, because they've been ahead of everything. They've been the iPod generation. They've been the iPad generation. They've been... and the reason why they did all that was because no one would buy an Apple Mac. So to get someone buying an Apple Mac, you had to bring out something that was related to an Apple Mac. And when you bought an iPod back in the day, iTunes was a very different phenomenon to what it is now. Very different. But, you have to think of where technology has come. But back to the good old days of the 1970s, there was a talk of a video player with a controller port on. And still to this day, no one knows what it's for. Now, obviously, there was video games put onto video cassettes, and it used excuse me, it used infrared, which would allow the it would allow the blah blah blah. It would allow the thing to read, where it was. But this was a phenomena into video games. Now, the arcades were cooler than video games, and a lot of people wanted video game lore. Now, what I want to say right here, right now, is, when you talk about video game lore, you want to get into the myths and the legends of it. And there were different currencies for video games in the arcades, mainly in Japan. But over here, we saw a lot of coins for arcades. I'm not talking tokens, that was a different thing. But we saw video game coins. And I saw from the late 80s, early 90s, the secret coin. I think they called it the secret coin. And no one ever knew what that was for. But I researched it. And it basically, you could put it into the token slot, and it basically got you a secret level. Now, there were only certain machines that supported this. There were a few racing games that supported it. There was a lot of fighting games that supported it. Shoot 'em up supported it, and platformers, which didn't do very well in the arcades, in my opinion, but yeah. And I've seen the Robotron, is it 2084? That has a secret slot on it, and I'd love to know what went in that. But yeah. And there were other things as well. There was a cheat on certain arcade machines, where if you got to high score, you get this cheat, and it would give you the developers mode. It would show you all what the developer did with the level, and you could play it the way they developed it. There was a rumor about Street Fighter that there was a hidden level, which no one could get to, and yeah. Yeah, so we're doing this podcast for an hour. We're talking video game lore. We're talking. Here's another thing, right? Here is a myth, right, that I kind of knew. Well, I didn't knew. This was talked about, and we knew about it. In the Super Mario games, and I'm going to be covering this in Nintendo lore, there was a darker side to Luigi, and even in the early games. And there's actually a myth going around. Well, it was going around in the early 2000s. Don't know if it still is, about the dead Luigi. Don't know if it still is. I've seen the meme, which is pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah. And yeah. And I think when you talk about game consoles and video games and what they can do, the early games knew how to really push stuff. And there was a game out there in the wild. Actually, no, forget about that game. Forget about it. Because it was like Gran Turismo, but for motorbikes. It was on the PC, but forget about it because it was only an indie game, and I did play it. It was very good, but this whole like hidden levels. I want to talk about that for a second because you would find them on so many games. And there used to be loads of Easter eggs in a lot of games. Like, I'm trying to think. One of them actually turned out to be a full game. I remember on certain demo discs, certain developers would sneak a full game on there and you'd be like, no way. You know where they'd say like, oh, this is 1 or 2 level. But there were games out there in the wild where it'd be the full game on the disc. You'd be like, oh my goodness grief. I mean, I remember the Tekken demo they brought out, and that was like they gave you a best portion of the pie. Because when I played Tekken 3 full, yeah, there were things on it that weren't on the demo, but I thought the demo was better. I thought the demo was way better because they gave you the characters and they gave you a really introduction to it. But you just thought, wow, how amazing is this? You know. And that was the thing. I always loved the Tekken demos because they were still just as good as the full game. And they gave you a good handful of levels, which is, you know, that was what made Tekken, like, even the demo. And I think there was one rumour saying that the full game was the demo or something. But, you know, there were things that we never really saw in the gaming world. You know, things that now are kind of relevant now. You know, like when it comes to online gaming. But there was talk of video game channels where you just buy the controller and the system. I mean, we saw that with the Sega channel, and I think Nintendo had one as well. But I think there was talk of a console they were going to bring out, but it wouldn't have worked back then. I think it would work now. I think there's talk of Netflix bringing out a video game console thing. You know, but I think the thing is, I don't think it would be great, but I think it would get people gaming. I mean, YouTube's got that YouTube Playables, and YouTube's got a massive, you know, it's got this whole massive thing now with games. People play games on YouTube. But there is a huge demand and call for streaming game services that aren't, and it'd be very, very different because it would be a massive experience. If you got a proper game, like the only decent game I've played online with, no, there's only 2 decent games I've played online with. One was Half-Life, and the other was, what was it? It was a war game, and I just felt it was better playing that online because the amount of force that it just, I don't know, there was so much feel. And I think when they brought too much to the online thing, when they bring too much to it, it just loses it. You know, I think personally, there's a lot of that feel lost. You know, there's a lot of that. I'm not just talking about prattling around in messaging and calling and all the rest of it. they're trying to give it that social media feel, which is what's lost. Instead of having that like in-game character and messaging them within the game, which you can do, but there's a bit more, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of that, I don't know, in-game feel that's lost, which is why Discord is I've not used it, but apparently it's a really great service for gamers, because you can stay in the game character. A lot of video game groups on Discord tend to stay in the groups and keep in the game thing, and it's kept within the game, which is it's important. But you want the feel of the game, not the feel of Joe Bloggs down the road coming in to the whole thing, which is what lost it for me. But it started off with celebrities as well. I mean, with Call of Duty, there's that big thing, that big campaign, and all the celebrities were going wild. So yeah, I'm going to do more. I'm going to cover Sega lore, which is Sonic the Hedgehog and stuff like that. Stuff that people already know. And I will cover gems. Gems isn't a part of Sega lore, but it's important, because the myth of Sega releasing apparently Sega is an awful games console because it just releases fart sounds. Well, that's a nod to gems. See, the Yamaha YM2600 chip is a fantastic. It was in a synth, and I played it with that chip in it. So it's a bloody great, amazing chip. It's got great sounds, and if you know what you're doing, it's a powerful thing. However, you give something great to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, or they don't know how great it is, it comes out, like it comes out like something with diarrhea. And it was, audio diarrhea. And the thing with gems, which people don't know about, is it's nothing to do that it was in MS-DOS and nothing like that. Nothing to do that it was in BASIC and all the rest of it, and so on and so forth. Because I've seen articles written by musicians on gems. And what you have to do with gems, because the Sega Mega Drive was written on different MIDI. So MIDI is MIDI. MIDI is basically musical input digital interface. Now, a lot of people think MIDI has this shit sound, but there's bad MIDI and there's good MIDI. That's what you need to understand. And what people were doing when they wrote a gems file, when they wrote a MIDI file, they were basically using, there was one or two things. They were using the MIDI that was on the computer and putting it into the Sega console, which it just didn't understand. And that's why all the wrong sounds were used. The developers didn't know what sounds, they knew what sounds they wanted, but they didn't know what sounds were going to come back. So that's what they had to understand, that you don't hear data, you see it. And you get these prats going, oh yeah, it looks good on screen, but it doesn't sound good. What's wrong with it? And the Sonic game is a prime example. The Sonic Spinball game is a prime example, because there's awful sounds in that. And it's just like there was more sounds that they could create with gems. It's just they weren't they didn't know how to do it, and they felt like they were limited, which they weren't. They just didn't want to know what they could do with those sounds. And the things with gems is you've got to export it very differently to, Apparently there's a program called Devil Mask. I've not really played along with it. A tracker called Devil Mask. And it's actually, it's got all the sounds you can hear and everything. But then there's another application I've not really played around with yet that a lot of Sega Mega Drive musicians use. And it shows you the actual waveforms and everything. But what you have to remember is, with gems, people were doing the MIDI that was on their computer, if you know what I mean. They were using the MIDI files and they weren't exporting them as a gems file, which meant you had shit sound. You know, when you listen to Comic Zone, the reason why that was good was because not only did they have decent programmers, but they had decent sound designers. So they were there, they were being the ears going, yeah, that's good, no, that's not good. And that's what you need, you know. And so that's why that happened. I mean, the gaming world's learnt a lot from that, you know. I mean, when you listen to interviews with people like Nathan McCreate and Rob Hubbard and Benny Dalglish and Alistair Brimble and all of those guys, they talk about what it's like working on certain consoles and how people just don't listen. How visual people just don't listen to sound people. You know, because it's like, you know, video and pictures, images, that takes much more memory and more data. So therefore, you've got to remember, oh, well, you know, sound, yeah. You know? So that's what you got to remember. And that's why the visuals weren't very great on the Sega. 3D games lagged because there was too much visual and there was less. So they tried to input more and tried to do more with it, but then they couldn't. And all the rest of it. Yeah. So, what time are we? Yeah, I kind of want to make this an hour-long podcast, but kind of want to give a good outro to it than what I normally do with this thing, which is I just don't say anything at the end. That wasn't really an outro. So, right, here's the thing. If you like these... No, I won't do that bit. Oh, yeah. Don't forget, folks, to ring the bell if you want your notifications. Wow, that was a real bell sound. I might have to sample that, because that was good. But yeah, ring that bell, press the sub button if you want to be notified about any new video that comes out on this channel. Hit the like button, comment if you want, share this out to as many platforms as possible. Tell all your friends and your families and your pets, if you got them, about this amazing show that we do, because we do every Friday now. And yeah, and so that's the thing. So, and shout outs, if you want to shout out, just do one, just put in the comments section, or you can message the Facebook page. Just one last thing before I go, is we're going to have a WhatsApp page. And on there will be all of the things that we're doing. You'll get to hear about other stuff that we're doing. And if you've got any video ideas, let us know through that. I don't know how I'm going to do that because I think it's only a send only. I'm not sure. We will do a newsletter at some point. Ooh. And putting that together. And we'll put that on there. And hopefully there should be a website on the way. But we'll soon see about that. Right. I am out. And also I've got a community post coming next week because... Is it next week or the week after? Because I was talking to somebody about vehicles, and lo and behold, I've got something for you guys, but it's not a walk round. And oh yeah, I forgot there is a shout out. I forgot. Sorry, mate. Sorry, I've left you to the end. I'm really, really sorry. A big shout out to Scrapyard John. Call him Scrapyard John or Chippy John. You saw him. Well, he was definitely. He was in the video. He's got 2 vans. And he was the one that had the 1967 Renault van. And we weren't going to put it on because it was like his private vehicle and all the rest of it. But he's like, oh no. I think he's never had anyone that's really interested in what he does. And not only that, he's never had I don't think he's met anyone that's respected him properly, known his sort of field. So I think when you get 2 people that do something that they like, you support, one person supports the other kind of thing, you then get, that's how I got the 2 vehicle walk rounds. And I got a 3rd wheel vehicle walk round that weekend because I spotted a Skoda and did that video as well. I'd also like to ask a favour, that if anyone's got any cars and they want me to do a walk around of them, and the garages are pretty local to here or whatever, let us know in the comments. So yeah, anywhere that's within the Southport area. It has to be within walking distance as well. Speak in the comments about that because we'll be here all day. And my final shout out, which I forgot to do in all my other podcasts, is a big shout out to the Dip Monkey Garage. If you want your car repainting or your motorbike repainting, they're the guys to go see. They'll respray it. They'll do all kinds of stuff. They know how to paint and spray, and they do all that kind of work for it. And I think someone made a Lego version of the Dip Monkey Garage. I put that on my community post. I found it and put it on. So yeah, that was just for the Beans World fans. So yeah, I know some of you actually have been to the Dip Monkey Garage. Unfortunately, they were a bit ummy and ahry about me doing YouTube videos there because they've got their own channel. So it is what it is. But if there is someone saying, hey, will you do if I send you a video of my car starting up, will you put it on your channel? And I'll say, sure thing. But I don't know how to do that. So, but definitely, if you send me your video, and I'll try and get as many, because this is a little catalogue we've got here of car startups, car walkarounds, all the rest of it. So it's a great little catalogue we've got going here. And I've had great conversations with people, mainly in the pub, because that's where you have great conversation. There's a few people that come to me in the pub and say, are you that guy that does car walkarounds and car startups? I'm like, yeah. And then they'll strike up. The conversation goes like this. So what cars have you not had on your channel? And I'm going, well, where do you want to start? But it's difficult to get a car. It's difficult to get a person to say, yeah, you can walk around my car and stuff. It's difficult, you know. It's difficult to do all of that. So hopefully, you know, we'll have a few more, but we'll just see. Because I really enjoy doing car walk rounds. I don't enjoy it. I love it. There you go. There you go. It's my bread and butter if I can get. That's another thing. There's loads of people going, oh, do you know Danny Miller? I was like, yeah, how did you know? Oh, apparently he's on your channel. Danny's not on my channel. His van is. You know. I was like, oh, yeah. So, but I'm hoping that gets him more work, because I was saying to Danny about his van. I was like, I did a walk around of your van, you know. Did it for the channel. And he's like, oh, cool, what's your channel? And I told him what the channel was, because it's what you do, isn't it? Because I didn't really ask, should have done. And apparently he's loving it, and everybody's loving it. So, but that's the thing. If it gets Danny more work, you know, Beans World 77, there you go. If I've got you more work, Mr. Miller, then more the merrier in my, you know, because I think that's how it should be, shouldn't it? Shouldn't it be like that? I tried doing it with those carpet guys that came to us, because they let me play in their van, and I thought, oh, if they let me play in their van, I'll give them a little cheeky shout out in the description, because that's what I did. And I've got another video come from, but they were brilliant. They let me play in the van. But yeah, I think if you're into vehicles and all the rest of it, and I think, you know, people will, if you ask kindly, and, you know, so on and so forth, people will help. Right, that's it. You know what to do. I don't need to say any more. The podcast is ended.